Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Randolph, and today we're going to do some interviews with reptile breeders at the Albany Capital Region Reptile Expo. And it's going to be cool. We're going to talk to some ethical breeders, seeing what is the process they're going to go through to producing these animals, and how do they interact with the public, spreading conservation through consumerism. All right, now we got some beautiful snakes. Introduce yourself, and who are you?
I'm Michael with Morningstar Reptiles.
What do you got in your hand right here?
It's a jungle carpet python.
So, tell me about it. So how long have you been breeding reptiles? And tell me a little bit of your experience with your ethical breeding. And how do you go through the process?
So it started years ago, about 20 years ago, doing geckos. And then eventually when I got the space for it, I moved into snakes. And carpet pythons have been kind of my passion with that because I just love the way how they're so inquisitive. As far as ethics go, I actually really like to do a lot of stuff like kind of overboard. Every time we breed any of our snakes, we get them completely tested. Nidovirus is a big thing that went around in pythons for a while. So we test all the breeding pairs before we do, and then every year the entire collection, even ones for sale, all get Nidovirus tested. So that way every animal can come with a clean bill of health and to make sure that nothing is wrong with them and going to come into your collection.
And that is amazing because that's such an important thing. People don't know Nidovirus and like sunshine disease started off in Australia with a lot of the Indo-Pacific pythons.
Yeah.
So as a keeper, you have to be careful of that, especially with our bloodline being so short.
Yeah.
Do you notice anything with like coming through all the decades of like captive breeding Indo-Pacific pythons or carpet pythons? Has it been easier with all the reptile testing, or has it been a little bit more challenging when you come to like breeding your own stock?
I feel like the testing is a lot newer, to be real. During the pandemic, I feel like it picked up, like people started to understand a little more about Nidovirus because it is similar to coronavirus and COVID. So it started to make it a little more sense for that. But for years, everything else, like you mentioned, sunshine virus, arena, Cryptosporidium, those are the scary ones for everything. So when these first came in, I get them all tested for those as well, Cryptosporidium and everything else. But most of that, like it's one and done once the animal's clean. The Nidovirus is something though that can be carried in the air. Like if this snake had it and was near another one, it could pass it along. So that is something we do every single year just to make sure, no matter what. But I wouldn't say it does anything. I wouldn't say it makes it any harder. It just became something that logistics wise, we just include with what we do with the animals. It's kind of like taking them to the vet. It's just something you're supposed to be doing anyway.
So yeah, it's just part of the routine, just like if you're keeping like your own like personal pets at home. Now, engaging with your audience or your potential customers, do you go through like a care guide background, or do you explain more about like the health checks? Should all your customers be doing Nido tests?
We recommend it. I mean, obviously people are going to do what they're going to do. I recommend any animal, even if you get it from me, I'm going to tell you this animal's going to come to you completely clean, but still take it home and quarantine it. Like go through the procedure no matter what. And I believe everybody should handle everything like that. And so for the price of it, it's very inexpensive these days. You can get Nidovirus testing through RAL and through Fish Head Labs. To me, it's worth it for these animals. I have a boa constrictor at home that's 20 years old. Like these animals will live, so it's worth it to me to take care of them every year and check on their health.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, so next question. What is your takeaway when it comes to captive breeding with conservation consumerism? A lot of reptile breeders like to put that notion around. What is your perspective when you hear that comment?
I guess it's a little weird with these ones because we're not plucking these out of the wild. Everything from Australia was closed off to export years ago. So anything you get that's an Australian animal is captive bred. So I feel for like this particular type of animal conservation, we're not pulling them from the wild. But I do believe in things such as like green tree pythons that are still plucked from the wild in mass. I do believe it's better to just be breeding them. What we have a lot of them here, breed those rather than keep pulling them from trees, because after a while they're going to run out. We've done it with a lot of other animals as humans.
So going on to that question, what is a good way if you are becoming a reptile breeder and you are dealing with a situation where a lot of animals are coming imported from like Southeast Asia or Indonesia, what would be like an advice you would give like a breeder if they're starting off with like this, like working with Indo-Pacific pythons?
With all of this, you're playing with life, so make sure it's something you're passionate about and actually want to do. That's my first step with it. And then after that, if you're like, I can see some cases where people say bringing in new bloodlines is good. However, in my personal opinion, if there are enough of them that you can get bloodlines of your own that are still separated and not related from captive bred, I would say stick with that because it does keep it from pulling animals from the wild.
Awesome.
I wouldn't want somebody coming into my house and dragging me out just to.
We can slow it down. I agree. That's beautiful. So, tell us, do you have a social media account? Do you have a Facebook, Instagram, YouTube?
Yeah, I hope you like underscores. It's underscore morning underscore star underscore. But you can just go to morningstarreptiles.com and then you can find all the socials off of there.
Awesome. And are you going to be at the Albany Expo next year, or are you going around any other parts of New York?
We pretty much stay here locally because we do pretty good here. So I haven't even gone online yet because we do pretty good here. Every year that we have more clutches, we're going to be here and around.
Thank you, man. Thank you for talking today. Would you like to introduce yourself and what your business is?
So I'm Zoe. I run Herpetology Boutique. Some people may recognize me as ZA Reptiles more than Zoe and Herpetology Boutique, but that's what I do at the expos is I spend with my kind of more artsy business.
How much time do you spend at going to reptile expos throughout the year?
So I really only do a couple in New York every year, once in a while. I'd like to travel to some of the bigger ones like Tinley Park. That one's a lot of fun to go meet up with people. But primarily I do 2 or 3 each in the spring and then in the fall here in New York.
Cool. All right. So what do you think is important when you're engaging with your audience or your guests coming to your table? What is the takeaway you want to have with them coming to a reptile expo?
Yeah, so whenever people come up to the table, even though I don't have live animals, I still like to talk about the live animals. That's what people are here for, is to see the reptiles, learn about the reptiles. So we still talk about it. I talk about the fact that I do reptile education. If people have animals, I like to kind of see what they've got. It's just a lot of fun to see the animals, talk about the animals, make sure people are having a good time. Because even though I don't have the live animals, I'm still technically part of the expo. I'm a vendor, so I want to make sure people are enjoying themselves and having a good takeaway from it. Good experience.
Yes, I agree. That's like a really important thing when you're engaging with your audience. Always make it positive as best as possible and educational with your background. So what is your take when it comes to exotic animal trade? What is the most important thing when people just talk about conservation through consumerism?
Yes, I think it's really important to talk about how to obtain your pet reptiles ethically, making sure they're coming from good locations, responsible breeders. That's something I talk about a lot when I do educational programs. I've got animals from all sorts of backgrounds, rescues, rehomes, ones that were wild caught. So I like to especially touch on, making sure your animals maybe aren't wild caught, making sure that they are healthy, how to find out whether or not they're healthy, how to find out whether or not they're being ethically taken in, whether they're things you should even own where you live, and how realistic it is for you to keep them, like sulcatas and iguanas, for example. Those are big ones we talk about in our programs. So just stuff like that, making sure that people understand, it's fun to keep reptiles. It's awesome. I highly encourage it, but making sure you're doing it responsibly and how to do that. Because a lot of people just don't know until you're immersed in the reptile community.
I love the answer. It's beautiful. It hits the point. Now, Zoe, where can people find you? Do you have any Instagram or social media?
Yep, so you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube as ZA Reptiles, or you can find the Herpetology Boutique on both Facebook and on Instagram and on Etsy.
Well, thank you for taking your time to talk to us today.
Thank you.
안녕하세요.
Hi. So, introduce yourself. Tell me about your business and how you got started.
Okay, my name is Ta, and I'm from IB Exotic. We started as Insect Brothers,
Yes.
and now we are rebranding as IB Exotic. How I do it? When I started?
Yeah.
So I started this hobby, I don't know, since I was like a middle school student, like when I was young. Now I'm like 42.
You look good.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. And yeah, a lot of my friends, because since I doing this from like a young age, a lot of my friends is doing exactly the same hobby because I'm always in that hobby. Then a lot of people in Korea, like my friends in there, that they doing crescent gecko, leech house gecko. So that's how I got into this hobby more. Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned about working with the hobbyists and breeders in South Korea. How do you integrate the standards of South Korean reptile keeping and merge it into American style of reptile keeping?
So basically, the history of the reptile keeping hobby history in Korea is not that long compared to America.
Okay.
And basically, like in Korea, almost like let's say 90% of people are raising crested gecko.
Wow.
And other 10% is doing like snakes. I mean, my understanding. So like other 10% is doing snake or like other like geckos, other type of geckos, kind of like this. So crested gecko is kind of like big thing in Korea. So because of that, like I feel like, I mean, don't get me wrong, the quality of the gecko here is nice as well, but since a lot of people is doing like crazy on crested gecko in Korea, the quality of the gecko is kind of high, and also the people's expectation is kind of high. So now, because I've been exporting geckos from United States to Korea before, but now I'm importing more from Korea to United States and introducing a new morph, new bloodline and stuff in United States.
Okay.
Yeah. That's how I'm doing.
So in when you're here at a reptile expo, how do you work with engage with your guests, explaining like, you know, where these bloodlines come from and like the importance of how it got hyper focused with breeding in South Korea and like coming to the United States. I should say, like, how do you engage with the education with like reptile keeping?
I mean, like how to care, like basic thing is basically the same. So yeah, I'm explaining exactly the same way as other like reptile breeder in here, but like new morphs in Korea or something, or like if it's a new bloodline from Korea. I mean, there, to be honest with you, like there is no new bloodline, right?
Yes.
So basically, a lot of crested gecko is exported from United States or Europe into Korea, and they developed it, and they find a new gene or new morph from what they have, and then they find out it's always like that, the morph.
Yeah.
So when people come to me, like for example, like chochos. Chocho is kind of like a brand new thing in the United States, but now in Korea it's like super big thing right now. A lot of people get into like chocho, or like marbling, or what else? Like all those like new morphs in Korea. So I bring it in, I show some like photo example or like some like real animals here, and explain like new morphs in Korea. And but like a lot of people, like basically, if you really love crested gecko, they always like go into like internet and like try to find out like what's a new morph or what's a big thing in Korea. So they kind of know.
Yeah.
But the only thing I do is just bring a real animal from Korea and show them, show people here, and it's like, okay, this is chocho, kind of big thing in Korea, and this is a real life, kind of like this.
Yeah. So you're bringing a new part of the game. You pretty much South Korea like fine-tuned it with the genetics,
Right.
and then you brought it here, and now you're showing the American hobbyists like, got to step your game up a little bit.
Yeah.
You're being humble. It's okay. I get it. Okay, so when a lot of hobbyists or breeders are saying about conservation through consumerism, what is your perspective on that when it comes to like crested gecko keeping? What is your perspective when it comes to conservation through consumerism?
Conservation? You mean like environmental wise?
Yeah, like how do you blend the both of like becoming a business, making profit, and how do you educate or tell people about that species of animal, where they come from, and how to like, you know, have a better understanding of these animals? Because like reptiles back in the day were like creepy and scary. People don't want to work with them. And how it implies, like, how does it blend in with the business?
So nowadays, like when people comes to me and ask about like how we need to keep this like crested gecko, Lichian's gecko or something, when they ask me, I will always explain it like how New Caledonia looks like. And also like a couple of my friends went to New Caledonia to find out the exact environment. Also like a couple of friends here, they went to New Caledonia. And I will go to New Caledonia end of this year just to feel it and just to see it in real life. So nowadays I just explain it like New Caledonia temperature is like this, and humidity level like this, and what they eat in the wild. So it's more like, I mean, like superfood and all that, we invented to make our life easier. But we really need to find out what they really eat. Kind of like that stuff, and then explain it to a new people, and also like educate people to keep this animal in a better way.
Yes.
That's what I do. Yeah.
That's the most important thing of a breeder. You're doing the extra step. You're going to the island, New Caledonia. You're understanding the full ecology of the animal.
Right.
So you can improve your animal husbandry.
Right.
So we're not just sticking them in a box and doing basics.
Right.
You're taking the step up beyond, which is beautiful. And that's why South Korea is probably the best crested gecko breeders. I'm just letting the U.S. know right now. Look at this gecko. Zoom in on this. Tell me about this more real quick.
So this is a lily white, full coverage. I mean, I have other animals here, but this is the biggest animal I have. One of the biggest animal I have here. It's a full coverage lily white. So there is not much pattern going on. They're fully white. They're kind of like a top of the line, a lily white gene. Also, this one is imported. So no, not this one. The sire of this gecko is imported from Korea, and I breed it here and bring it here.
So you're just stepping up the game.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
following.
Yeah, follow. Okay. All right. So our closing. How do people find you? Are you going to any reptile expos in New York? And do you have a social media page?
Yes, my social media page is IB Exotic in Instagram. Also, we have a website, ibexotic.com. And also, we're introducing a new gecko diet from Korea through the website.
It's right here.
Yeah, right there. Final meal. So this food is invented from my friends. Also, I was involved in the development. Yeah, there is like a lot of like reptile keeper in Korea, and also like food scientists or FDA people involved to develop this diet. So yeah, so you can get all this info from our website, from ibexotic.com.
Thank you. 고맙습니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi. So introduce yourself and what is your business?
So I'm Justin Munsterman of Legacy Herps. So that's me. That's my business. This is one of my Colodis Pethiagodai, little female, about 7-8 month old female right here.
Now, when did you get started with the reptile hobby or into captive breeding as a business?
As a business, really only the past 2 years, but it's been something that I've been doing my entire life. Since I was 5 years old, I've been keeping reptiles, so 34 years now.
Okay. Yep. Now, I've seen your table, and for a second, I thought you were European because you have a lot of EU hobbyist reptiles, and you want to talk about it a little bit? Like, describe it, like, why'd you choose the EU style of hobby breeding compared to just doing, like, ball pythons and leopard geckos?
Like the species that I like to keep, or like the way I like to keep them? So I guess it's a little bit of both.
A little bit of both, okay. So more like, choose. They're very unique. Like with like the EU hobbyists, they kind of like keep their eyes on the oddball ones and not just do like the standard bearded dragons and leopard geckos. So describe that a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. I do kind of consider myself like a American herpetoculturist with an EU flair. So it's just they're just what I've found that I enjoy the most. Stuff. Forest dragon type lizards, stuff like that. I like to do stuff that nobody else is really putting the time and effort into because I've always liked to be an individual, as far as what I'm working with. And also being into it for so long, the common stuff that you see on a daily basis just doesn't get my blood pumping anymore.
Doesn't give you that kick?
No. So, I mean, even when it was, even when I used to do snakes years ago, it was always still rare and uncommon species. And when I moved into doing just lizards, it's that, carried over. It's still the rare and uncommon animals, but yep.
And I also do the same. I breed green keel lizards, and there's not many people, and I'm trying to work on the zoo bloodline on that. So talking about the rare and oddities, how do you, for conservation and consumerism, what is your perspective on that and how you apply that to your business?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know, the whole conservation, commercialization, or whatever conservation. I don't know. I'm not like a huge advocate of that wording for it, but it does make sense though. So I mean, the conservation piece on it, yeah, the more you produce, right? If you can take something that's not common in captivity, or maybe it is a common import, right? But it's just an import, nobody ever captive breeds them. Well, if we can get people that are captive breeding those, then it takes pressure off the wild populations. So I mean, I produce so many of this species, there's no reason that any of these ever need to come out of the wild, again. So yeah.
That's beautiful, because like that's another thing I'm conflicted as well when I hear that saying, because it's such an umbrella. Like, how do you imply that? Like, are you taking your proceeds and profit, putting it into conservation? Are you going to these places and studying the ecology so you can improve the husbandry? Do you have plans to do that, like going to like Southeast Asia?
I would love to be honest, but trying to find the time and the availability to do those things for me is going to be very difficult. But yeah, I mean, I have poured some money into conservation and stuff like that, especially with like Abronia and stuff. I've donated some of the projects down there, trying to conserve habitat for Abronia and stuff like that. So I don't keep Abronia anymore. I did years ago, but there's still something that, it's kind of closer to home. It's not on the other side of the globe. It's our southern neighbor, and I know what kind of pressure the lizards were under for the pet trade and everything like that. So it made sense, So I did do some, it was called the Dragon Conservation Project. It was Cloud Forest Dragons. Now it's the Dragon Conservation Project. But yeah, I donated some money for them to build some new habitat and hides and stuff like that out in the wild. So it's,
Okay. And when people come to your table, or they're visiting at a reptile expo, how do you engage with your audience or potential customers? Like, what is the takeaway you want to have with them?
Well, I mean, if they can learn something, you know what I mean? Or if they come to my table and they see a species that they've never seen before, I'm always happy to educate, you know what I mean? If they do end up making a purchase, I tell everybody, I said, here's how you can get in touch with me. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, because I rather you have the info, you know what I mean? And I want them to have a good experience with the animal that they bought from me. So I don't want to sell them an animal and never see them or hear from them again. I want them to come back to the next show and say, hey, remember I bought that Cophotis dumbara from you at the last show? Well, they're doing great. Now they've doubled in size. Maybe 6 months later, they tell me they have their first litter of babies from them or something. So, but yeah, it's all about educating the customer, obviously, especially when it is something like this, that it's, a one-off, or either I'm the only person breeding them, or there's a very small handful. So yeah, I mean, that's the good thing about shows, is you have that one-on-one time with the customer in order to be able to really go over whatever, versus like online and doing texts and stuff like that back and forth. You know? So yeah.
Yeah, it's that close network opportunity where you can like be in person. So if they have any questions, you're right here. It's gonna be harder when texting me and I'm like carrying lizards all over my face. Right. And then one last quick question: if there's a hobbyist that has come up to you, they're like, I want to breed rare European style hobbyists. I want to get into that. Well, what is an advice you would want to give to them if they want to jump into this as a business?
As a business, I'll be honest with you, it's probably not the best idea, because it is usually the common stuff is common for a reason, right? Because people buy it, people breed them, people go and shop for them. Stuff like this, like I said, I do have to educate the customer a lot as far as sales. I mean, eventually it gets traction enough where you don't have to do so much legwork anymore. You know what I mean? This species, for instance, or Cophotis dumbara, those have become super popular now, and a lot of people are working with them. There's a lot less legwork I have to do to talk to you and teach you about it and everything like that. But as far as the business, I would say, this is the way I look at it. None of this stuff that I work with is because I said, well, that might be a winner or that might be a winner. These are all species that I have a deep passion for. So if you're passionate about it, then that is going to carry over to the customers. You know what I mean? If they see how passionate you are about a certain species, it gets them excited. So there's nothing in my collection that I am not absolutely floored by. And that's why I work with the species that I work with. It's just, honestly, the success that I've had with those is what propelled it into a business, because, you have to get rid of your offspring somewhere.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, or else it would really just still be a hobby of mine, and it would have not have been, a business. But yeah, you have to get rid of your offspring. So really, like my thing is work with whatever makes you, whatever really gets your blood pumping. If it's something you see and you're like, wow, these are so cool, but I don't know anything about them and nobody really works with these, do the research. You know what I mean? Google's a great tool. iNaturalist is a great tool.
Yes,
Even if there's not literature where you're going to go read, okay, this is how you care for this species, you might be able to find a picture on iNaturalist that has the geolocation of where that animal was found. Well, now you have a locality. Now you can look up the weather patterns, the temperatures, the rainfall, seasonal changes, anything like that, and see. To me, a picture is worth 1,000 words. That old saying. I don't want to grab him down there. I'll wait till it comes up to your shoulder. I'll wait till it comes up to your shoulder, but you can hang on to him. So yeah,
this is the best way to end an interview. Just have a really rare looking lizard to jump on you, and we're just getting too much eye contact. You got jealous.
Anything we need, guys, is where we can find.
And where can we find you?
So Legacy Herps at Legacy Herps on Instagram. That's my most used social media handle. Also Facebook under Justin Munsterman, my name. So that's really it for the most part. I don't have a website or anything like that. Instagram is my biggest following there. So
Thank you, man.
yeah,
Thank you.
appreciate it, guys.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That was weird.